PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, the Star Wars podcast, featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a very special episode of Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast. I am PLD, host of PLD Projects. As always, with me is my good friend, Matty Gunner. How are you doing today, sir?
Doesn't matter how I'm doing. We got an incredibly special guest, an absolute legend on the show with us. It doesn't matter. I'm doing great. You can tell how I'm doing just by the smile on my face right now.
We do indeed have a special guest, host of many podcasts, galore, professional in the truest sense of the word, co-host of the ForceCenter podcast, good friend of mine, as well as Matty's, and as well as all of yours, Mr. Ken Napzok. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm so happy to be here. I'm emotionally moved by that intro, that music, the swell, the soft tones of PLD production, the voiceovers. I'm moved. I'm moved, gentlemen. I'm moved and happy to be here.
I appreciate that. David B. music, of course. I find more and more as I watch the intro, I do find a little bit of irony in the fact that I'm making it a very serious, moving intro, and then we're calling ourselves Holy Snokes, the Star Wars podcast.
That's how it should be. Star Wars is a mix of the silly and the poignant, so that's perfect.
It does make for a happy mix. Well, you've been with us before. Everybody who's watched us before, we appreciate it. If this is your first time here, of course, hit that like, hit that subscribe. We are having a modest goal. We are marching towards 500 subscribers on the YouTube channel. We are making our way slowly but surely, but anything you can do to help us out with that would be greatly appreciated. Of course, this is the 4th episode of Holy Snokes, and as you know, we are reviewing The Bad Batch Season 2 episode Entombed. But before we do that, we want to get into a little bit of the news of the week. Definitely, it's been gearing up in news lately as we get closer and closer to celebrations. Some are important news beats, some are silly news beats, and some are just maybe just plain a little interesting. But we like to touch base on all of them. The first one we're going to start with today, gentlemen, is, of course, Lars Mikkelsen, character of Thrawn. In a very Liam Neeson-like way, he was asked whether he would be playing the live-action version of Thrawn, and he answered pretty directly, "Well, I haven't had the offer, but yes, sure." Now, that seems to me to be a very interesting answer in and of itself. Perhaps I'm one for overthinking things, but what do you think? Ken, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on Lars Mikkelsen's reply to that question?
Wonderfully cagey, sexy in its caginess, I might add. I agree with my colleague Jennifer Land on ForceCenter, who's like, well, you know, if he's in negotiations and they haven't given him the offer, then maybe that's true from a certain point of view. I forget, I've lost track of the production schedule when he, you know, I would have thought he already would have been in it or something. I don't know. The whole thing around Thrawn is cagey. So this is no different to me, but I think I'm going to take it as a play on words from old Mikkelsen there.
Matty, your thoughts?
I feel similar. I think while he may not have had an offer, maybe the talks are ongoing, because I don't think we'd even get Thrawn straight away in the Ahsoka show anyway. And I think to suggest such a thing would just invite fans to be like, where's Thrawn? We were promised Thrawn. We didn't get Thrawn. Nah. It's like, well, they're setting up for something bigger. They've spoken that they're setting up for something bigger. So you'd probably only get Thrawn maybe in like the last episode, maybe 2, maybe even just in a post-credit scene, like right at the end. So I don't know. But with Lucasfilm and these announcements and stuff, like you can never tell. Like they said that Luke Skywalker was going to be Plo Koon. So there's a lot of fugaziness and contracts and negotiation talk. And
are you telling me Star Wars fans aren't rational and they'll get upset when they are promised something or not promised something? I don't believe that. It's hard to believe. I agree with both of you, quite frankly. I do think the way I'm reading it, I think his agent has the offer. He just hasn't hand delivered it to him at his house yet. That's my thought. I think for sure we're going to get Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn at this point, and I believe, like most of you, I don't think we're going to get him in the beginning of Ahsoka. I think he'll be a tease towards the end, perhaps one of the last episodes, because that's where it all is leading up to. If Ahsoka is going to find Thrawn and find Ezra, well, that would seem logical to me that they would go on the adventure and then find Thrawn at the end of the season. Of course, leading up to this potential bigger crossover we've heard bandied about from the Filoni Favreau side of things, tying in the Mandalorian, obviously. So that would make the most sense to me. At the same time, I'm starting to love the caginess. I love when Andrew Garfield did it for Spider-Man. I loved when Liam Neeson did it for Qui-Gon. Don't tell me anything. Tell me flat out no. Lie to me. I'm okay with it. As long as it serves the purpose of being interested, engaging with Star Wars, engaging with these people, I'm all on board with it. So you can lie to me as much as you want.
Sheryl Crow once sang "Lie to Me and I Shall Believe." Great song from Tuesday Night Music Club.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'm with you on both of you on this idea that, hey, let's make sure we're all kind of pumping the brakes on when Thrawn might show up, if he shows up. Now, memory serves, you boys help me. I think Ahsoka's a limited series, at least right now.
Correct.
Everything is a limited series until they need a second season or want a second season. And I'm not opposed to that at all. So, yeah, I think I've had to remind myself that, they didn't necessarily say Thrawn was going to be in this show. We have the mention of him in Mandalorian season 2 from Ahsoka. So, yeah, it's connect all the dots, Rebels 2.0, whatever you want to say. But I think even I will have that, like, end of episode 1, he's there, right? Oh, no. And that kind of creates some false expectations. So it's a good reminder for all of us, to those very rational Star Wars fans, that will be there.
You make a good point that even the most rational fans amongst us can still buy into some of these things sometimes, and then create a false sense of expectation for ourselves. We're just the ones, luckily, who usually can, when it happens, we can take that step back and go, okay, we weren't really promised it. Let's move on, see what they're going to give us.
Yeah, but even I kind of think Ahsoka is a sitcom, and like all of a sudden at one point in the episode, Thrawn's going to walk through the door and the crowd's going to go, ooh.
Taped to a live audience.
Yeah.
If we have a sitcom laugh track for Ahsoka, I'm coming for you, Ken. And
Ahsoka is taped before a live studio audience.
Perfect. Perfectly done. All righty, then let's move on to a couple of the other things in our news bits. We do have, I would like calling Instagram finds, 2 snippets we have found by Star Wars fans, being rational people that they are. They also are very much detectives. Benoit Blanc has nothing on Star Wars fans. They are searching down every possible record of anything they can find, and they end up finding little tidbits. For example, we know now, well, again, not confirmed until announcement. Let's make sure we say that out front. Steph Green put on her Instagram that she is directing for Ahsoka in the most innocuous way possible, working on, and then Ahsoka was just in a group of listings of stuff she is doing. Is now down, is no longer in there, which makes me think it's even more true than not at this point. But I will say, I'll let you guys talk in a second about it. I am happy to see her come back. I am someone who, for the Book of Boba Fett as a show, to me, that I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into in the first episode. I wasn't even sure how much I liked it at first, but man, did I grow to like it. And man, on rewatch, I thought it was phenomenal. I loved everything it did, especially the episode that she directed. So I think this is a great win for Star Wars to have her back in the fold. What are your thoughts, Ken?
Emmy and Oscar nominated filmmaker, I think is what the bio says now. I think it's a reminder that if you're in the Star Wars world, even if you've passed by a set carrying a box of donuts to a star, you have to watch yourself on social media. People are looking. And I think part of this is just, I don't want to get Steph Green in more trouble, right? I don't think she is, but it's just the passion the fans had for her episode. I agree with you that Book of Boba Fett didn't hit with everyone. I acknowledge that completely. It really hit with me. I love this show. And one of the reasons was her episode. Her second episode, Tribes of Tatooine, the big, that's the train heist stuff, all that kind of stuff. But the big, all the stuff with the Tuskens at the end, it really kind of established the tone of the show of like what we're going for. It's something different. It's something spiritual. It's not the Boba Fett you knew. And, maybe that wasn't the Boba Fett show you wanted. Totally get it. Totally understand it. But I think Steph Green absolutely belongs in Star Wars. And I really hope she keeps going. And I hope it looks like Ahsoka is the show that will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Maddie, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I hope she didn't get in too much trouble for for posting anything. I know Instagram can be notorious for, again, I mentioned fugaziness. A lot of people taking things the wrong way. Maybe she put up, maybe she had a hand in it somewhat, and people are like, oh my God, she's directing it. So again, it's a matter of I'm going to wait until the announcement comes out because I really, really, really liked the Book of Boba Fett. Ken, as you said, that second episode, the stuff with the Tusken Raiders and everything, incredible. I loved it. And it just makes me think that directing style and that kind of storytelling, what could we get from her in Ahsoka and the story of Ahsoka and her journey? Because at the minute, we don't know where she's at. She's kind of in that balance of I'm not a Jedi, but at the same time, I'm still kind of finding my way in the greater universe and the Force. So how does that look through Steph Green's eyes? I'm really curious, and I hope she is, because that sounds really intriguing to me.
Yeah, Ahsoka is a show that might have some great adventure attached to it. Of course, it's Star Wars, but the search for identity, the connection to friendships, where Sabine is at this point in time, whatever's going on with Mandalore hanging over all of them. You want someone like Steph Green who handled Boba Fett's search for connection, family, and identity so well. Be perfect fit.
Absolutely. One other Instagram find, of course, was also from stunt coordinator George Cottle, who has since deleted an Instagram video. Don't want to get you in trouble, George. Again, I do say that out front, but it is something to talk about. Merely celebrating the end of filming, saying that was a wrap on Skeleton Crew. Again, it's funny that this is big news for people. All we have about this Skeleton Crew right now, post Return of the Jedi, Jude Law is in it. There's some kids in it. It's an Amblin-esque adventure.
Yeah. And
we're so wanting news bits. The fact that it's finished filming is a big news find for us. I'm excited about Skeleton Crew. I'm excited that it's wrapped, which means the thing that means to me, what I get out of this news bit, so to speak, is that we're going to get more from it soon. If it's finished filming, I would expect we might get something at Celebration or something to that effect. I'm not sure how much or anything, but that's where we are. It's just good to know that it's finished and it's doing well. What are your guys' thoughts on Skeleton Crew and this, that it's finished filming?
You're actually making me laugh, PLD, because you're having given me flashbacks to the old show I used to be on the old Star Wars YouTube side, where this would be a big news story because it's all we had, and all it is a chance to celebrate a show like this existing. We don't know anything about it. I love the theory. I don't go deep into the theory waters, but I do like the Jude Law as a younger Lor San Tekka theory. Total theory. I'm not going to keep that in my mind, creating false expectations. But yeah, I think you're right. The timing will lead up to a celebration reveal of any kind. But again, if you're on Instagram, I learned this once with a Schmodown taping. I tweeted something out or something that was weeks before a match was going to air. You just got to be careful. People are watching.
Star Wars fans especially are watching, and they're searching these things out. Maddie, what do you think about Skeleton Crew when it's ending?
I mean, people follow hashtags on Instagram. I do it. Like, people are looking for these small, minute details, and it's almost like making mountains out of molehills. We see that it's finished. Just because that one unit is finished wrapping doesn't mean the whole thing's done. Like, that particular part of production has wrapped doesn't mean the whole thing's wrapped. They could still have ways more to go, and with acclaimed child actor Jude Law attached to it, reshoots are possible. Anything could happen. Like, that's as Ken said, I think it's a good exercise in tempering expectation, but I would like to see something at Celebration.
If anything else, it just makes me smile to hear that Star Wars is ongoing.
Yeah.
That's just the one thing I take from it. Star Wars is always ongoing.
I always have this when we used to cover these stories, and now here we are covering this one. It's just that there's new Star Wars out there, and I don't know about it yet. That's a fun place to be. I'm excited that we know nothing about this show. The reveals will come, the cast list, the characters, all the stuff will come. But this is a fun time to be like, we have no idea. It could be anything, and that's fun.
That's the beginning is always the most fun part. The next bit of information. This is, again, one of those news bits that are just kind of strangely out there. To me, it was more strange that it all happened at the same time in different areas. StarWarsNewsNet.com is where I get most of my news. I love that site. It's run by great people doing great work, and they're very good at tempering out the rumors from the facts. So they're very responsible that way, I have found. We had Alden Ehrenreich, Daisy Ridley, Ewan McGregor, all asked about returning to Star Wars, and they were all affirmative about saying they would love to come back. Now, to me, that I have to temper with a grain of salt, because they were all asked directly. This is all part of an interview process. Well, what do you think about returning to Star Wars? What do you think about Obi-Wan season 2? And if anything, they got to be at least open to the idea. They're not going to shut anything down because that's just silly business-wise. So how much is the heart into it? I don't know. But before we touch that, I want to touch base on the fourth one, which did excite me a lot, and that was Gabriel Luna. Gabriel Luna is someone who I don't know a whole lot about. I've seen him obviously in The Last of Us, and I saw him in the Terminator Dark Fate. He is such a big Star Wars fan that in this news thing from comicbook.com, he specifically mentioned writing a letter to Dave Filoni, talking about anything he could do, even pitched himself as Ezra Bridger in live action, and went so far as to say, if not that, if the High Republic comes to the scene, I would love to be Elzar Mann, to paraphrase. Now, that's a Star Wars fan. He's talking about the High Republic, which has not got a whole lot of mainstream media. So that kind of thing enriches my heart far more than yes, of course, I'd love to come back. What are your thoughts on this, Ken?
I am familiar with Gabriel Luna in sort of name only right now. I haven't watched The Last of Us yet. You mentioned the Terminator film. They made some after 2, like apparently. They made some.
They've tried to make 3 a couple times now.
Oh, okay. And that's not shade on those movies. I fell off that franchise. So I'm excited when someone is excited about Star Wars. Doesn't mean I need everyone in Star Wars to be a Star Wars fan. That doesn't need to be. Doesn't always have to work that way. But Elzar Mann specifically, that's my favorite Jedi from the High Republic. I'm not confident that they are going to be springing into live action High Republic stuff anytime soon. I know we're looking at the Acolyte being towards the end of that era. I still think that's just a happy coincidence. And well, let's just say that now. I think Leslie Headland wanted to set a story 50 years before Phantom Menace, and they're like, oh, we just created this era. That's a different news topic. So Elzar Mann's a great character, and if anyone's like, oh, yeah, excited to play it, I'm all there for it if we get to it.
Absolutely. I'm a High Republic fan of sorts. Matty's actually our High Republic fan more than I am. He's really deep into it. I've read the books. I'm actually going to reread them again soon as we get on to the second era. Elzar Mann is also my favorite character of that High Republic era so far. I really have connected with his kind of roguish ways, almost like a Qui-Gon-ish way of not being on board with all the
PLD. Let's just say it. He's a Jedi that gets down, and I think we're intrigued by that.
I think that's exactly what it is.
I mean, my favorite character is Geode, but
Geode, I love Geode.
Geode is pure Star Wars. I'm not going to lie. He's pure Star Wars fun in every way possible.
And if Geode angers you, that makes me giggle even more.
You know what? That's a great point you mentioned, because he does anger. Like, some people get angry at Star Wars related things, and when I hear that, I just want them to lean into it even that much more.
Yeah.
Matty, what do you think about Gabriel and the others?
My approach is, while Gabriel is incredible in the 2 episodes of The Last of Us that they've seen, he's an incredible actor. I come at it from I don't want to say cynical, but a very realistic business term of course no one's going to turn down Star Wars. Of course everyone's going to want to be in Star Wars. That's it's one of the biggest bags in Hollywood to get. If you get a Star Wars check, you're set for quite a while, especially someone like a character like an Elzar Mann, who would probably be one of the main protagonists of whatever project he was going to be in. So am I surprised? No, but it's good to hear that someone of that caliber wants to join the Star Wars universe, and other people like Daisy Ridley and Ewan McGregor are still excited to be involved in it and are open to it. Because we've heard a few actors say, no, I'm done. I'm cool. I can go off and do other things now. But hearing acclaimed actors like that who have big roles, influential roles, that still want to come back, yeah, I'm all for it.
I agree. I love the fact that we're getting it's part and process of TV becoming more important. We're in a world now where television is equally as important as the feature films, to be honest with you, as far as Disney Plus goes, everything else. Back in the day, it was always the movies were it. If you were on TV, it was like, that's fine. But TV is attracting much more talent these days as well. So as we're getting more and more series, more and more talent that you can attach to that product, get more eyes on it and get more excitement about it. And that leads to sometimes bad things when you get expectations involved, but also it leads to more exciting things as well, exciting possibilities. And while we're talking about actors out there who are Star Wars fans in the universe or the galaxy, so to speak, Amandla Stenberg from The Acolyte has also mentioned, and last time she said at Comic-Con last year, she mentioned she listens to Star Wars podcasts. So if you're listening, Amandla, feel free to contact us. We would gladly have you on for an interview. Always be plugging.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to their appearance in The Acolyte. I cannot wait for that show. So, yeah, good call.
Absolutely. All right, last little bit of news before we get into our Bad Batch review and speculation. Star Wars Celebration is kind of just around the corner, and I am having
literally for me.
Literally around the corner for you. That's true. I'm having the utmost FOMO. I look to see what you two have in store, what your plans are for Celebration and your excitement levels, and perhaps what you expect to maybe see or hear news bits of at the convention.
Man, I'm excited and nervous and scared. It's overwhelming right now for me, and it should be. The fact that this is finally back to London. Matty, I know you're happy to have it in your backyard there, as you should be, just like I was happy to have it down the freeway in Anaheim. Man, that was an easy trip. There's a lot of travel stress and all those kind of the cost of it, all that stuff that can kind of get in your head. And right now that is in my head. And I am looking forward to getting more announcements and kind of seeing what's going to happen. What is the main theme? Movies, we're looking at 40 years of Return of the Jedi, that kind of panel, movie announcements, show announcements, Skeleton Crew panel, Mandoverse panel, all those kind of things are going to come. And right now I'm just excited to get there and be around Star Wars fans again. It's the turnaround is so quick this time because we had such a, that pandemic caused a layoff. It almost feels surreal that it's happening again. Like I haven't got my energy or my legs back to do it, but I'm excited. And then plus there's, for me, the London angle of it all, finally getting there, first time traveling there. I'm excited about that. And a little overwhelmed about where I'm going to get my pints.
Matty, I think you can help out with that quite a bit.
I was going to say, I cannot tell you exactly where you get your pints. You will get them from myself. I will be buying you every pint when we're around each other. That I can promise. That will be very well taken care of.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm excited because a lot of friends of mine have recently been coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Oh, we're going to Star Wars Celebration. You're probably going too, right?" And I'm like, "Wait, you're a Star Wars fan?" And these are people that I've known for like 10 plus years that over the course of the pandemic and streaming becoming popular, Mandalorian becoming popular, that they've become so ingrained in the product that they're now like, oh, there's a massive Star Wars convention coming on. All the actors are going to be there. Let's go. And obviously people like Ken and other friends of ours from the Schmodown space and everything coming over. I'm more looking forward to the good times. And this is so cliche, and I know it sounds very cliche. I'm looking more forward to the good times around it and the memories that we're going to create that weekend. Because one of my favorite moments of Star Wars Celebration, the last one, was walking around with you, Mark, Joseph, and Brian Ward, just walking around the convention floor, drinking martinis in a can, and just chatting about Star Wars. That was one of my absolute favorite memories of the weekend. So I'm more excited for that. But yeah.
Sorry to cut you up, which is probably what I did when I said too many martinis in a can for you, Matty. I'm with you on that. And I think for those, it sounds like what you're saying, Matty, is there's going to be a lot of first timers who are local, who are like, oh, over the last few years, 2016 was the last Celebration London. A lot has changed in Star Wars. A lot of big properties and shows have showed up in the Star Wars galaxy that probably brought in new fans or rekindled the love of Star Wars from old fans. So it might be their first convention. As we get closer, I'm sure you'll have more tips and all that kind of stuff. But what you just said, Matty, is what I am excited about. It's not the panels. It's not the reveals. It's not the news. It's being there around friends, making new friends, connecting, and just celebrating the love of Star Wars. Whenever you go to a convention that is hyper-focused on one world, that kind of jumps out to you more than it does at, say, a San Diego Comic-Con, which is an interesting experience. But quite frankly, we're all there for alcohol or parties, not Marvel, DC, or Star Wars. It's a different vibe. Star Wars Celebration is a different vibe. And that's what people should get ready for, to create memories and not worry about what you get into, what access, what you buy. Just being there, you'll feel it, you feel the vibe, and you'll love it.
I love that you said you're having a lot of the new timers or newcomers getting involved. It's like I have that in myself. I mentioned that to Ken, actually, the ForceCenter. I talked about my son, who recently we finished watching Clone Wars. We're going to start watching Bad Batch tomorrow. I'm getting him through. We're watching entirely chronologically at this point as best we can. And he was never looking forward to Rebels. Today, he said he's looking forward to Rebels, to continuing the stories of Ahsoka and Rex and things of that nature. And I mentioned Celebration coming, and he said to me, he goes, "Wow, I wish I could have gone this year." And I'm like, my heart started getting a little, I got a little fast palpitations. I'm like, this is my boy. All right. So perhaps next year or next time it comes back around the area, I'm going to have to check in and have a second newcomer, possibly, depending on how things go. But yeah, it's exciting to see new people getting involved in Star Wars. I always feel like we have the original trilogy fans like us, Ken, the old grumpy Star Wars fans who are, reaching more the twilight of our lives compared to some of these youngins comparatively. But then we have the prequel fans who love it. Now we have the sequel fans who love it. It's just generations abound. And I'm just happy to see it continue in that fashion.
Yeah. I mean, I saw on Facebook literally this morning a woman who, it was on the Star Wars Celebration Facebook page of a woman who was asking, she was like, I've never been to an event like this before, but I want to take my son because he's just getting into Star Wars. And the amount of people that were saying, we've got spare tickets, we can't make it, we'll sell you our tickets. We want your son to go because we can't make it. Hit us up. We'll knock money off of the price for you just so your son can make it. I was kind of overwhelmed because I was like, wow, like the kindness. And that was one thing I noticed in Star Wars. I didn't have one bad interaction with anyone. Not a stranger, not anything. There was none of this nitpicking about what happened in the first 2 episodes of Kenobi. There was none of this. Like everything was all positive and good. That was the main thing. Ken mentioned it perfectly. Like the vibe of the event is the best thing about it.
Yeah.
I feel like Celebration is always, we have our quibbles here and there. Star Wars fandom obviously has had some, issues here and there. I feel like there's a movement in the right direction against some of the negativity. I feel like some people are finally tired of some of the negativity surrounding it. A podcast like yours, Ken, podcasts like ours, podcasts like, Alex and Molly, they're starting to get back into that more positivity thinking. And I feel like Celebration is the perfect crux of that because I never hear anything bad at Celebration outside of maybe the bad backs from sleeping on the concrete floor or the hangovers the next day or possibly to that effect. But overall it's always a positive experience and it's a positive love for Star Wars. So Celebration can always almost fix anything, I feel like, as far as it goes, at least for a temporary bit, and hopefully it'll be leading to a more permanent basis of Star Wars leading back into a positive experience for everybody, because that's all I want. I want people to love Star Wars, love what you love about Star Wars. You don't have to love all of it. I never would say that. Obviously, not everything is going to hit with everybody, but love what you love. Let people love what they love, and just celebrate a good story, a good galaxy, good themes, good meetings, and good people, good friends.
Yeah, well said.
With that being said, I think it's time we move on to the second part of this podcast episode. We are be talking about the Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 5, entitled Entombed. If you've never been here before, this is your first episode. We break these reviews down into little segments to better digest them. And we always open with our first segment. We call it Hondo Watch 2023.
Insolence! We are pirates! We don't even know what that means!
It's a simple question. Did Hondo Ohnaka appear in this episode, or does the Hondo Watch continue? And my friends,
this effort is no longer profitable!
Unfortunately, that is a negative. We did not get Hondo Ohnaka in this episode. We are still waiting for his appearance in the Bad Batch and further live action potential. We did have a chance. I think we had a chance to see him. I think there's some groundwork laid in this episode that potentially we could see Hondo down the line, because I can't help but think that Fee is friendly, or at least on a first name basis, with one Mr. Ohnaka.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm not saying that it's a connected, shared universe of Fee and Hondo, but this is an episode that you're going to point back to and go, yeah, she definitely would know. She definitely probably competed with him over some prize. They both consider themselves, well, pirates, treasure hunters. There's different ways, business people, different ways to look at it. But yeah, I'm with you. It was Hondo Watch close, almost. Yes.
Almost there, Matty. Are we gonna get there soon? What do you think?
We got to get there soon. I mean, like you said, the groundwork is laid for it. And when we talk about Hondo Watch, like this is different to like expecting Thrawn to show up. This is like our guy. We love Hondo. Like I remember going to Galaxy's Edge for the first time and like seeing Hondo and just be like, whoa, okay, that's my celebrity right there. I've seen Hondo. I'm good for the weekend. R2, Chewie, yeah, oh good. I've seen Hondo. I'm cool for the weekend now. But yeah, the characters are very similar, which makes me think maybe next week, maybe we can get him.
After. We'll get him there someday. That's the good thing about watching for Hondo. He always you can fit him into almost any Star Wars story and he would make sense. So he's always a possibility.
He's so versatile. He's just got his fingers in a lot of trouble. So let's do it.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to move on to what we call the mission briefing.
What do you need, Rex? Any chance I could use you for a mission?
Let's break this show down. This is not a deep dive. This is basically an overall summary, overall thoughts and experiences. We started out this episode with the great combination, one of my favorite combinations of Wrecker and Omega, the big guy. It's a great visual just alone. The big, huge Wrecking clone and the slight young female clone that we have grown to love in a junkyard, salvaging technical stuff, a compressor, things of that nature. They find a medallion of some kind, or I don't know what it was, a pendant of some kind. Either way, it was a compass. It ended up being a compass to a different world and leading to a possible treasure hunt. We get to learn more about Fi Godot, as we talked about. She tells a lot of stories in this episode to many audience members, whether excited like the crew at Sizz or the less excited like Grumpy, Hunter, and Echo. But it leads to a great adventure that it felt Star Wars and Indiana Jones combined. It felt like Bad Batch was auditioning to be in the next Indiana Jones movie, so to speak. I want to throw out there this word that's thrown out there quite a few times about Bad Batch episodes specifically and other Star Wars things. They talk about the word filler, and they use that in a negative context. I want to reclaim that word, take it back. I want to recontextualize it. I think we don't call these things filler anymore because that's not what these are. I want to call them enhancement episodes because these are not filler in terms of they're not important. They might not be important they might not be big, moving the needle plot point wise in the overall story. We didn't get anything more about the Bad Batch and the Empire or Crosshair and Bad Batch, anything like that. But it did a great job of developing these characters. We got to know so much more about Fi. We got to see a possible relationship really laid its groundwork. It almost reminded me of Hondo and Ezra from Rebels in a way. Fi could really be influencing Omega in a direction that maybe the Bad Batch might not want to see her go, or may cause some tension later on. But I think that Fi is going to be an important character to this group going forward. We get to see Omega advancing herself even further. And we get to see Hunter getting a little more, shall we say, disgruntled at things. But I feel like beyond the fun of the episode, and this episode was fun, we also get a little more into these characters, which is only going to enhance our view later on as the more, shall we say, quote unquote, important story beats are to come along in the season. Thoughts on that, Ken?
Man, that's all wonderful stuff there, PLD. This is why I love having you on the roster here. The Star Wars baseball team we're all playing on here. Maddie's in the bullpen warming up. I love all this. In 2023 now, if you hear any pundit say the word, it's just filler, write them off as a pundit. I mean that cold and harshly. Write them off. This isn't 2014 anymore. I had to learn. I remember I was on a Rebels review and I said something about filler, and it was Steven Stanton himself who corrected me both on air and off about a lot of it having to do with budget. You don't get the big episodes that you want every week. We can't afford that. Also, there's pacing and storytelling, and also there's things that play. When you engage with the story that's presented to you, even if you have an episode like this, I'll say this wasn't like my favorite Bad Batch episode. I too want Gungi, or most people call him Gungi, but we still call him Gungi at ForceCenter. I want Palpatine to show up. I want Cody back. I want Rex. I want all those big things. But this is a 16 episode season. Enhancement's a great word. What an old school WWF term, enhancement talent, right? But we got to spend time with them in this episode. In telling you at one point, literally saying to you, yeah, it could be fun. In that fun, you find out a lot about yourself. You find out a lot about your choices. We have a lot going on with Hunter. Hunter is a parental figure, watching Omega grow in this episode, really connecting with Fee Genoa, and even to the point where she's copying Fee, just like she used to copy Hunter. It's a shout out to our friend Alex Damon, who actually had screen comparisons to season 1, season 2, and this is what's going on. You have Echo and Hunter kind of not wanting to go on some pointless treasure hunt because maybe they're moving towards wanting to be connecting with more stuff going on in the galaxy. And you have my guy Wrecker, who's just ready to have an adventure. It all really does add up to great character development. We're spending time with them. And on top of it, it was a great genre stew of an episode. Indiana Jones, Uncharted, even for me, Spielberg's War of the Worlds with that kaiju monster coming out. Great imagery with that there. And in the fun, you learn a lot about yourself if you allow yourself to.
Absolutely. I will say, Matty, before I let you give your thoughts on it, I want to say one more comparison that came up in my mind. I love a grade A sirloin steak, but if you get a sirloin steak every week, does it really make the same impression on you? Or do you have you have a couple of hamburgers now and then you get that grade A steak. I think that grade A steak makes a little more of an impression when it happens. Matty, what do you think about this episode?
I think Ken eloquently put what I kind of want to add on in some way of this was fun. To me, this was, I hate the F word. It's not the F word that I like to throw around in my vocabulary. But this to me was a perfect, it took me back to being a kid watching Saturday morning cartoons. You had a band of heroes, a pirate, a treasure hunt, and a giant mech monster. Like it just, when I watch it in the mornings, I have 30 minutes before I have to go to work. Those 30 minutes just take me away from the world. Just take me away from all of my day-to-day bullshit that I have to go through. And let me just live in this and enjoy myself. That's all I care about when I watch this show. Yes, the connectivity is all cool. Yes, the big plot moments are all fun. But what is that worth if we're not enjoying it? What are all these little Easter eggs and spoilers and everything? What are they worth if we're not enjoying it in the moment that we're watching it? So, yeah, I thought this episode was a lot of fun. Looking at the, you said the expansion of the team, as it were, as well, of Wrecker is now getting more involved in the adventure and the growth of Omega. Like he is that big brother role.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that more and more as this goes along. And I love Wrecker. He's my absolute favorite of the Bad Batch. So anytime he gets a chance to shine, I'm all for it.
And I will also say today's filler episode is tomorrow's Easter egg. That's what because that happens quite a bit in Star Wars.
And it's like we're going to get, this could be the last season. For all we know, this could be the last season of the Bad Batch. We're going to get 3 to 5 years down the line where people are going to be like, I wonder when Wrecker's going to show up in something. I wonder when Tech's going to show up in something. And we're going to be like, man, I wish we got another season of the Bad Batch. Just take these stories as we get them while we've got them. Enjoy them while we're getting them.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. Well said. All right, we will move on to our next segment in our show here. We call this one The Bachelor.
I was hoping for the whole squad, but you do.
This is quite simply, who was your favorite character of the episode? Who made the most impressions on you? Whether it be a Batcher or a side character, either way. And who was your favorite character of this episode and why?
I'm going to one of the headliners of the episode, Wanda Sykes as Fee Genoa. We had seen her before. Happy to get to spend more time. We learned the pirate treasure hunter aspect of it. And she is part of one of the central themes of the show about, what treasure do you seek? What's the actual thing you're seeking? It could almost be cheesy. The real treasure is the friends we made along the way. We were talking about that on ForceCenter on our episode this week. But at the end of the day, she gives up the treasure when she sees the damage it's causing, when it's almost a comment on the trope of going into some land and taking something that belongs to the land and not yours. There's that. And I think at the end of the day, even the love of Mel, sad to watch Mel go, but this happens all the time. Mel's around. I have the backup. And I think that is that just shows the nature of the character. She's fun. She's good foil. And again, I'm not a parent, PLD, but you might go through this too, where your pride and joy, you've done all you can, and you kind of have to watch them move on in their own lives, make their own decisions, and then other people come in and influence them, and that's scary. And Fee is a little scary maybe to Hunter, and all those lessons that he's kind of learning, watching her do it. But I think at the end of the day, Fee has a good heart, which puts her as a definite rival with Hondo and his good but crusty heart.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that one. Matty, how about you?
Mine is Omega, for actually one of the reasons that Ken's just pointed out, that as you get older, you get into those teenage years. I know, especially myself, I would look up to like the older kids around the street or that I was in school with and be very easily influenced by those people. This is why I have long hair and I'm covered in tattoos and I wear all black. It's because of all the people that I met growing up. Yes, I still have those like core values that I was put in by my mother and my grandparents, but like my identity was formed by the people around me growing up. And I think Omega's in those formative years now where I don't know if she's going to start dyeing her hair crazy colors and wearing Alkaline Trio and H2O t-shirts like I did. But yeah, I just think seeing the growth of her, like she's so obsessed with treasure and adventure. And I'm just curious to see where that's going to lead her going forward. Is she going to start to lead, is the pirate's life for her? Or is she going to, take Hunter's advice and just be like, hey, chill a bit?
And perhaps, does she change? Does she have influence on Fee as well? Kind of how Ezra had some influence on Hondo. The younglings had some influence on Hondo, showing that like you kind of peel the crust off the heart just a little bit to show it every once in a while. Or in this case, does like Matty's suggesting, does Omega get into some kind of really, I don't know what metal Star Wars is, but you start cranking the metal in the back of the ship while Hunter's screaming at it to turn it down, and we all get kind of grumpy. I don't know. We have to see how that's going to be. Maybe it has to be season 3 at that point. I will say for myself, I initially thought, as Ken did, I did want to go with Fee potentially, but I did see a little bit of myself in the character, and I want to highlight this character. For me, it was Hunter. Because if anybody gave up grumpy, disgruntled dad vibes more, I don't know where it would be. I think he had more size this episode than lines. Every about, we're not going to do that. We're not. We are going to do that because he's going to have to go with Omega. He spoils her in his way. He always like, you can't do that. It's always the next episode. So that the next flash is them going to do exactly what she said they're going to do. I do love seeing Hunter in this father-like role. He is far removed from the Hunter we first met in the Clone Wars, the first episode, the first arc of the Clone Wars, where we first introduced ourselves to Hunter. He's a tired man now. He's a little grumpy. But I like seeing how that's developed because he has the weight of the entire team on his back. We have Omega and Echo wants to do the right thing. Hunter wants to do the right thing for the batch. And it's kind of a warring faction we've had going on. And I think it's going to come to a head at some point. And which direction is Hunter going to take the team? Because he is the definite leader of the group at that point. So that made it a fun episode for me, watching him behind the scenes, just twirling his knives, not knowing what else to do except to follow the other crew into an adventure. Specifically, I loved the sharing of glances between him and Echo as Fee is telling her grand stories to the Sid's crew there. They had that shared moment of, oh boy, what are we getting ourselves into?
What are we doing?
All right, that's where we are with the favorite characters of the week. Our next little segment we call I Spec.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Now get out of here.
This is quite simply our favorite lines of dialogue. I love talking about the dialogue of Star Wars. It's always something that sticks with me. It could be a humorous quip. It could be a heartfelt moment. Matty, I'll start with you this time. What was your favorite line of the week?
I think it maybe because I'm English, that our type of humor that we enjoy is that very dry wit, very kind of sometimes morbid kind of humor. But there's the moment, and it's kind of a little callback. It's when they've just destroyed the mech and they're leaving it, and Tech says that now puts us 0 for 2 in treasure hunting, even with a pause, like he's about to go professional in quotations. That just had me absolutely howling with laughter. I love Tech and his dry sense of humor. I've always said he's the biggest unintentional comedian in Star Wars. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite line in this episode.
I enjoyed that one too.
Uh,
Ken,
I probably would have answered with that if you had pitched to me first. It's such a great line, and I talked a lot about on our ForceCenter episode, but I want to bring it up to both of you here. It's wonderful to hear you, Matty, attach it to like British style of humor, which is something I've always appreciated from afar and think I get and kind of participated into myself. But on the other side of it is the very American side, PLD. This puts us 0-2 in treasure hunting. Is like a baseball reference to me.
yes,
Matty, that's a better version of the game Rounders. And so I know saying 0-2 or 0-2 is not necessarily does not necessarily mean it has to be baseball, PLD, right? But like it's a baseball reference, right?
absolutely a baseball reference. And Tech, the guy saying it, he's got baseball cards galore. If there's a galaxy far, far away, pastime such as baseball.
So I keep joking with space ball. I want to see that. There's grav ball that's been mentioned in Star Wars. I would love to see the sport, in the Star Wars galaxy that made Tech say 0-2. And again, people out there might say, well, it actually it means this. It comes from this. Totally get that. I'm just saying when you go 0-2, you know what that means. 2 at bats, no hits. And I was tickled by that. But that's a great line too. But mine is also, I'll say this one, Wrecker, when he just goes, oh, it is a secret entrance. I love Wrecker so much. I see myself in Wrecker. I'm not as strong as Wrecker physically, but I'm a big oaf and I'm slow in the uptake sometimes. And when you I have those moments too where I'm like, oh, it goes in the top shelf. Everyone around you is like, yeah. So I love Wrecker more and more.
I got to be honest with you. Wrecker's favorite line. I could have a Wrecker favorite line every week too. It could just be his grunt. His grunt could be my favorite line of the week. Just every time he says it, that's Wrecker.
Good.
I will throw out one more line that I loved as a callback. Dave Filoni tends to do this in his shows. He'll have a line that's been used in Star Wars before. So it's a callback. It's a humorous moment. And when the crew gets back together, Hunter turns to them and says, "What took you so long?" Much like Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker to Han and Chewie Han and Chewie to Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker when they got together in New Hope to get to the Falcon. It just felt like a very Star Warsian line, if that makes sense. Just Hunter's dry wit. I love that. I love that aspect of when Dave Filoni does that. It just makes me feel. It makes me feel part of the shared universe even more because I get that. It's that moment, like I know I'm a big oaf sometimes too, but I'm like, I get that. I like that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's always fun.
It's always fun. All righty, let's move on now to our next segment. We call this one, Put That in Your Holocron and Snoke It.
Do you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
This is, of course, where we do a little bit of a deep dive. We look into the lore that's been mentioned. It could be anything, really, something that we want to know more about, but we want to see further explored, perhaps in later seasons, or even in books or in comic book, things like that. I'm going to start this one off myself. What I want to see, first of all, besides the fact that we had Fee telling all sorts of stories about the Blade of Zakatapar, the Kingdom of Elwes, throwing references out left and right, and funnily enough, the Chalice ending, which was definitively a nod to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade after the whole Indiana Jones episode we basically had, sans Boulder. I want to learn more about Skara Nal. We had this drip-dropped adventure that's like laid out to us, this whole big ancient civilization prior to the Jedi who had this big mechazoid Godzilla-like creature, which everybody thought was the Zillo Beast. That's why it's always interesting to take your trailer thoughts and don't definitively say anything because everybody's like Zillo Beast appearing. No, it's a big mechazoid. We did see the references to Jedi Fallen Order, perhaps, and Zepho, perhaps. I heard those concepts, but I want to know more about the ancients and this planet specifically. Who had this in mind? Who created this? Like, what was it created for? And to have a creature or a stone stop it from doing what it's supposed to be doing, what is it even there for? I have no idea at this point. And I love not knowing because it definitely means there's a gateway to another grand adventure of storytelling later on. That's what I want to see more of sometime in the future, whether in Bad Batch or in Tales of the Jedi or anything else we could possibly get our hands on. Ken, what about you? Did you like that aspect? Did you have another one you wanted to touch base with?
Well, this is a great segment for a episode of a show that was like, we'll give you new lore. Don't worry about that lore. I think a quick fact check, by fact check, I mean, going to Wikipedia, none of this is anywhere else. It's not buried in some young Han Solo adventure book from 82. Like none of that. I think it's all kind of brand new, which is fun. It's again, kind of what's going on with the episode. This episode is meta in a lot of ways, saying there's a lot of great adventures, enjoy the adventures. And there's this purpose in this great storytelling. And all these are potential stories. Going to this planet and find out the history of it. I think, not something I'm expecting, but you have it there. You could go into it. I want to follow the next adventure. I want to go to chase that chalice. Let's keep going. Let's do a spin-off show. See Genoa and Mel and Omega go search for things. So that was kind of my favorite side of this episode. The fact that it was all new lore.
Yeah, we are all Omega at that moment. Ooh, the Kingdom of Eloise. Ooh, exciting. Matty, how about yourself?
I wanted to go with the potential Zepho-ness of it, but there was one moment that gave me a mention of the Clone Wars in A New Hope level. Ooh, and PLD, you mentioned the Blade of Sakata. Now, I am for better or worse, a blade fanatic. I collect knives. I love like stories of like Excalibur and like famous swords and famous blades. That's kind of stuff. For some reason, maybe again because I'm English, like it just gets me excited. So when that got mentioned, I was like, "Oh, what's that? Like, tell me more about that." So if that again, it could just be someone writing a little blurb on a Wikipedia article. But I would love to know more about that specifically.
You know what? Anybody who's listened to our podcast knows about Matty and swords. His love of the Darksaber comes up quite often. He goes from 6 to midnight very, very quickly. Whenever we get
this
that
thing.
Exactly. It has to make an appearance on every episode. I'm okay with that. I'm quite okay with that. Because I would love Matty to be ruling Mandalore. So I'm quite all right with that.
You don't want that. You don't want that.
The beverages alone would be worth it, I think. The Mandalorian pubs would be skyrocketing in fame. It would be a great tourist location. The economy would be solved. It'd be perfect. It'd be really
a Mandalorian themed pub. Ken, I may have to approach you about that at some point.
Okay. I'm ready.
Alrighty. One of the last segments we have, last two segments. The first one is parsecs out of 11 in terms of we will be rating this episode between 1 and 11 because we always turn it up to 11 here on PLD Projects. So let's go with.
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
It just works. It just works. Out of 11 parsecs, I'm going to give this a 7.5. I highly enjoyed it. I had a great time with the Indiana Jones aspect of it. And something we did not even mention, I should have mentioned this during the mission briefing, the Kiner score, which was chef's kiss. He understood the assignment perfectly as he usually does. He almost always does. Nods to Indiana Jones, sweeping score that kept me entertained the entire time. But it's a fun adventure. There was new lore. We learned a little bit more about the characters. It's not quite up to the level of a Solitary Clone episode, which really moved the needle for me. That's one of the most perfect Bad Batch episodes I have seen. One of the more perfect Star Wars episodes I have seen. But not every episode has to be that. But I still had a great enjoyment out of it. 7.5 for me. Matty, how about yourself?
I went with actually a little bit higher. I went with an 8.5. This was on my second watch because, as I said, the first time I watched it, I was kind of like on my way out the door. I just wanted to completely forget about everything I wanted to do for the day. The second time I sat down and watched it, and I was like, man, this is fun. This is just a lot of fun. Is it amazing? No, but it's enough to make me sit down and just be like, I love Star Wars, man. I love this show. I love this whole product, everything to do with it. I'm just like, this is why I'm here. The adventure, and it was great. The gritty, the dark and gritty of it all is amazing. But give me just a good, fun adventure to watch on a Wednesday night, anytime.
I love the fact we mentioned it before on this podcast. I love the fact that we have Endor. I love the fact that we have the Bad Batch, and they all fit in the same universe, and we can have enjoyment for everything involved with it. Ken, what about you? Where does this episode fall for you?
First of all, I got to say, I always do this test where I go to New Hope, Luke staring out at the twin suns. And the first time I saw that, first time the world saw that, and I always think, Luke is staring out at those twin suns, and somewhere there's a destroyed Mechazoid on a planet, and he doesn't know. Somewhere, Dewey and Greedy Or having bigly dinners. Or having
Dinners.
biggie dinners, I should say, with squigglies, and Luke doesn't know about it yet. So yeah, for me, if your scale's up to 11, you turn it up to 11. This one goes up to 11. So I'm gonna maybe go meet you at your 7.5. I might go 7. I said up top, is this one of my favorite Bad Batch episodes? No. On a rewatch, if I'm in a pinch, am I going to stop and watch this one? There's a chance I might skip it and come back to it later. I have to be honest with that there. But this is a story that celebrated adventure. I am an Indiana Jones fan. I love Indiana Jones. Can't wait for Indy 5. And this had all the vibes. Talk about Kiner's music. It was the sound of exploration and discovery. He nailed that. Loved everything about that. So yeah, I absolutely enjoy it. I'm here for the fun. And there's great things for you if you look past just the fun surface and you want to engage with what's there. So I'll go 7.5.
All right. I'm glad to hear that as well. It's definitely a successful episode in the eyes of Holy Snokes. All right. Our final segment of the day. We call this one Force Vision.
Premonitions?
This is where we take a stab in the dark. Responsibly, as Ken would say, responsibly, we're not going to make any expectations of ourselves, but potentially where could you see ourselves going? It could be next week. It could be next season. It could be the end of this season. It could be anywhere else that springs from this episode. What are your thoughts on the future, Matty? What do you see from this story going forward?
More pirates, more adventure, more pirates. That's all I want. Even it doesn't have to be Hondo. It doesn't even have to be Fee. Just like this. We've had a couple of episodes of it now of this like swashbuckling adventure, looking for treasure. This is perfect for me. I want more of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ken, how about yourself?
This is, what's perfect is Hondo can show up and be like, I was looking for the heart of the mountain and it's gone. It's ruined. What have you done to me? I think that could show up there. I think for me, one of the things I want to take forward from this episode is Hunter and Echo. Let's not forget Echo in this episode. Often overlooked, Echo is, but just sitting there kind of going, all right, what are we doing here? And I think as this group continues to wrestle with its identity, are they mercenaries? Are they former clones? What's their place in the galaxy? I want some of the conversation starters in this episode, I think will be finished or continued at least in the next few episodes.
I like that. I like that quite a bit. For myself, I'm going to take a look. I look at the trailer again. I said this to myself, a warning to myself, not to look at the trailer and look too much into it. But I kind of feel like our mission briefing clip was from the Bad Batch trailer about Rex needing them for a mission. I'm putting this all together. I feel like on the way back from this adventure, perhaps that's where Rex is going to get on board and ask about getting a mission. What that mission is, I'm hoping, and I'm possibly hoping it's going to be, is something involved with Cody. I feel like we're going to get Cody has obviously gone AWOL. Although I did see this weird theory that I will posit out there. I'm hoping it's not true, that some people felt like Cody did not leave the Imperials, that he was taken care of by Rampart, much like the other clone captain. I can't remember his name from Bad Batch earlier on this season. Maybe instead of leaving, Rampart just took care of him and Cody is no more. I can't believe that Cody would leave that fashion. I believe he's enough of a character that we'd have like an on-screen moment with him. My own thoughts. So I think Cody is AWOL. I think he's going to Rex. I think we're going to see the Batch have to maybe save him or get him somewhere safe to move on. Eventually, again, I'm hoping for that Cody Rex sit down. Maybe it's at Dexter's Diner on Coruscant. Just sit down. That could be the whole episode. Where they just sit down, have a meal, and just talk about the past and their future.
Yeah, that meal at Dex's Diner between Cody and Rex could have Pacino and De Niro and Heat vibes, if you will. Like, go some places with that. And I hadn't really played around with that theory or heard that theory. I think we kind of even thought about it a little bit on ForceCenter, just with Rampart. You don't trust him. That clone commander's name, I think, is not going to work here anymore, is his name. So I think I'm with you on I don't want that to happen. I don't think that's the case. You bring Cody back with great purpose, I would think. So, yeah, that's one of the things that I know a lot of people want to get to, and we'll get there.
Yes, we absolutely will. Well, that is it. And a great episode to wrap up here at Holy Snokes. Ken, I really appreciate you coming on board. I always love talking to you, and I love talking Star Wars to you. I love talking everything with you, music, everything else, like baseball. But Star Wars specifically is where we kind of always return to, of course, because of our mutual love and admiration for it. So I really appreciate you coming on board. Where can the folks find you?
Easiest thing to do is go to kennapzok.com, my website. You'll link to a lot of things I do, like stand-up comedy, my music show, Pop Rock and Radio on Mixcloud. I have a new podcast out called The Blathering on my podcast feed. Podcast feed's been around since 2013, but I've rebranded it as the Napzok Network. And of course, for more Star Wars thoughts, me, Joseph Scrimshaw, Jennifer Landau are hanging out over at ForceCenter. You can go to our podcast feed. Also, we're finally, it seems weird finally to say we're expanding on YouTube, but we just finally, it's kind of synced up in our lives and careers to go into more on the YouTube side. So we got live shows, a new show called Figure Fights dropping in February. So exciting stuff going over there. Follow us there if you'd like.
Absolutely. I would second that. ForceCenter is my favorite podcast of the week, generally speaking, to be honest with you.
Sorry that other people lost you to ForceCenter.
Yeah, it does happen. It does definitely happen. Matty, where can the folks find you?
You can find me listening to ForceCenter every week. You can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner. You can find me yelling into a microphone very aggressively, but still trying to make a pub pop rock song. So maybe one day I can be on Pop Rock and Radio. MOURNER, Mourner. We have a website, mourner.co. You can go there for music, merch. We're on all streaming platforms. And you can find me every Tuesday with PLD and Richard Eric Jarvie on Class Action. And here every Wednesday for Holy Snokes.
And of course, myself at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. That actually is my name. I go by PLD, but that's my actual name, my birth name, as it were. You can find me every week again here on Holy Snokes. And the PLD Projects Network is expanding, like I said before. We're asking again 500 subscribers. It's a modest goal, I feel. So we're going to get there, I hope. We have great content on here. Every week we do Holy Snokes on Wednesdays. We do Class Action on Tuesdays with Matty and Richard Jarvie, where we put up two things in the movie or TV world up against each other with custom-made categories and have them do battle and see which one comes out triumphant. They also host 2 Mediocre White Dudes on Film, which is what I'm wearing today, with myself and PJ Campbell, or head writer of the Schmodown. We do deep dives, and next week we continue our dive into Lethal Weapon. We did Lethal Weapon last week. We're doing Lethal Weapon 2 next week, and we'll finish out the series in the next following weeks. And finally, I also do Crown Jewels, a journey through Queen, where I'm taking you through every song in the Queen catalog, including solo works. I do a deep dive on them, and I talk about the best versions of the tracks, the studio version, the live version, the single version, the edit, the remix. Which one is the crown jewel of each song? That goes up every Friday. And we do have one more podcast coming out soon, but that's just a little bit of a tease. I'm not going to do it out right yet. I have a trailer coming soon. We'll get there. It's exciting.
I did the music for, so take with that as you will, that I did the music for the intro. So
he did do the music for the intro, and I will give you a slight tease that it is a very Stone Cold Steve Austin like in its sound, a riff like Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme music, and I did appreciate that. He understood the concept perfectly. And of course, I want to shout out PLD Products Patreon. I just want to shout out a couple of our patrons: Allison Salamone, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alterman, John Lestrina, Pardish Estedason, and a few others that really help us keep the lights on going on this podcast, as well as all other podcasts. We have some great Facebook chats going. We have some extra content on there as well. Me and PJ sometimes talk Doctor Who, watch-alongs, hangouts, a lot of fun. So if you want to help assist that way, we would love to have you aboard. But that is it for this week of Holy Snokes. Stay tuned for next week. We'll be back again. Hopefully, Ken, we can get you back on sometime in the near future as well. Perhaps post-celebration, we'll get a report back from you on your thoughts and how you and Matty could have stories you could probably tell, and maybe some stories that you can't tell. At least
there will be more of the latter. Trust me. We will be protecting the guilty. That's for sure.
The story is going to be like, I took Ken to my pub and he just kept trying to sing Live Forever with the entire bar while I gave him a lager. Like, it was enough already.
I'm getting even more FOMO now. When it comes to America, we'll be doing that again. We'll be singing maybe, I don't know, the American version of Oasis. I don't know, maybe Aerosmith, something to that effect. We'll go out, we'll have a good time.
American version of Oasis.
I don't know what that would be, but that's a story for another time. Until next time, of course, take care, everybody. Love to have you on board, and we will see you next week.
May the force be with you always.